To be honest, the most satisfying part about working with Nuxt isn't the auto imports, data fetching, composables, or nice conventions. It's this, the loading screen you get while your app is starting up. So in this video, I'm going to walk through how I would recreate this using some really cool Vue techniques. Let's take this step by step. First, we want to create all the elements that we're going to need for this effect. We're going to need a background, a circle that follows our mouse, and then our logo in the middle. To style our background, we want our width and height to be our screen size, and we want to set our gradient to go from top to bottom, where it goes from black to green. But I think that this transition is happening too early, so we can add from 80% to shift that gradient stop. Now let's center our logo by setting flex, item center, and justify center on our parent div. And we'll also throw in a position relative here so that we can come to our next div, which is that light around our mouse, and set our position absolute. Eventually the top and left positions, as well as the width and height, will be based off our mouse. So let's create a dynamic style. And for now, we'll just hard code our left and top to 0 pixels and our width and height to 200. Then we'll give our div a background and use rounded full or the border radius to make it a circle. Now let's actually make it respond to our mouse. And to do that, we're going to be using useMouse from the vuejs library. So let's import it and get the current X and Y values from useMouse. And back in our styles, throw those into our left and top values. So if we look, it's following our mouse, but there's some improvements we can make. Right now, our mouse is positioned at the top left of the div, but if we want to center it, we can translate our X and Y by 1/2. Which will shift it by the width and height so it's centered around our mouse. Next, since this div is always under our mouse, we can no longer click our link, but we can fix this by using pointer events none. Also, if we go near edges of our container, we'll get these weird scroll bars, but we can easily fix this with an overflow hidden on our parent div. And then finally, to make it look pretty, let's add a big blur. And already with just this, it's starting to look pretty cool. But with effects like these, it's the really subtle things that make it pop. For example, if we go to the next one, we can see that as we get closer to the center, the size of this light grows. So what we want to do is get the distance from our current mouse point to the center of the screen, and then use that somehow to calculate our size. So first, to find the center point of our screen, we can use another Vue's composable called useWindowSize. Then we can create computed properties for the distance X and distance Y, where we find the absolute value between our current mouse position, and then half of our width, and then half of our height. Then to get the actual distance, we can use some good old Pythagorean theorem inside of a computed property. But then how does this translate to the size? Let's say at a max, we want this circle to be 300 pixels, and at a minimum, we want it to be 150. We can say const size is computed of math.max, and then we can put in our max size minus our current distance as our first number, and then our minimum value of 150 as the second. So now as we get farther away from the center, this number will decrease, but our size will never drop below 150. So we can see that it works, but I think it gets too small too quickly. So let's divide our distance.value by 3 to act as a kind of damping factor. All right, this is starting to feel like the Nuxt version, so I'm pretty happy with it, but there's two last details that we have to get right. So first off, we want our opacity to be lower the further we are from the center. So we can do that with this function, where our minimum opacity is 0.7 and our max is 1, but as our size decreases, our opacity will drop. And then the final effect is the coolest, and it's this kind of clipping mask that acts around our logo as we move our mouse around. But before we do it, I want to say thanks to the sponsor of this video, Vue.js Forge. So Vue.js Forge is a free conference for the Vue community put on by Vue School, and it's a really cool opportunity to learn about some of the latest developments in the Vue ecosystem while building a really cool project and meeting a ton of other developers. There's going to be live coding exercises from some of the coolest people in the Vue ecosystem, and the project that's going to be covered is an AI-powered social media post generator. So it's going to be really fun to work with some of the OpenAI's APIs inside of a Vue app. There's also tons of really cool swag, and even for this brand deal, Vue School is giving me a year-long membership to Vue School and access to the Mastering Nuxt course to give away. So make sure to follow me on Twitter because I'm going to post about the giveaway in a few days. I highly recommend attending, and it's free to attend, so why would you not? But make sure to click the link down below and reserve your spot. All right, now back to the coolest effect ever. So if we look at the Nuxt demo, we can see that as we move our mouse around, we get this kind of spotlight effect where parts of the logo fade as we move our mouse around. And the way this works is using CSS mask image property, which takes in some sort of mask and uses the transparency of that mask to determine the transparency of our content. So what we're going to want to do is draw a gradient around our mouse that goes from black to transparent and use that as a mask on our image. So let's go to our script and make another computed property that will return our logo gradient style. We can say radial gradient, create a circle at our mouse X and Y, and then for our gradient stops, we'll say black and then transparent. If we go to our logo and bind this on the mask image style, we'll see that something is masking, but it doesn't seem like it's following our mouse. And that's because in our radial gradient, when we say circle at x, y, this x and y isn't actually our mouse position. For the radial gradient, the 0, 0 is the top and left of the element and not of the whole screen. So we want to offset our mouse value by the bounding rect of our logo to get the kind of true mouse value. The easiest way that I like to do this is let's create a template ref called logo, bind it onto our logo, and then we can subtract the bounding client rect left and top from our x and y values. And there we have it. Now if we move our mouse around, we actually get that nice spotlighting effect where our logo will fade, and it's truly responsive to our mouse. And if we put it side by side with the next one, I say we did a pretty good job. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.